Hello, everyone. I'm Derek Horn, the Director of Programming for the Annapolis Film Festival, and I am so pleased to introduce to you two of the directors and the lead actor of the Marshmallow Mystery Tour. And I have to say that this is probably my most exciting discovery of the year. You know, it's every programmer's dream to be the first to discover fresh new talent. And I've always wanted to be, why can't I be one of those taste makers, And I feel you've given me a chance to do that. So thank you. Your film is so unique and original, unlike anything else I've ever seen. And it's really exciting for programmers when we watch so many films and submissions and they all start to blur together and look similar. And, there really seems to be an overall trend lately in independent filmmaking for this kind of trying to capture reality, like right down to every detail. Like the verisimilitude is more important than the interesting message you have to say. And while I love that in my documentaries that I watch, I actually look to my fictional narrative films to show me artistic interpretations of life. So in whatever genre that is, and you certainly have a very artistic interpretation, and you have a lot of messages and things to talk about in there, things to say. So it's not just some vacuous, artistic exercise. So while it's very entertaining and creative, it's also very educational. So it's interesting because I know that Jeff, you are a teacher, right? What age or?
Oh, I'm a high school teacher now, high school social studies teacher. But I used to be a diplomat overseas and a whole variety of things. Yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun to have Marshmallow Mystery Tour type of educational films in school? I would never miss a day.
Candy is the secret weapon of every teacher. Candy prizes make things work.
Yeah, there was a film back in the 70s, an educational film. One of our screening committee members, he pointed out, he said, "Oh, this reminds me of Supergoop." And I was like, "What's Supergoop? Is that like, Schoolhouse Rock?" And he said, "Well, sort of, but it was something that, it was animated and it talked about the dangers of marketing and advertising to children, particularly with sweet, sugary cereals. And so just, the power and influence advertising has. So that's one of many influences that
we can't count it as an influence in that we had not seen it. Right. It speaks to just how boundless this topic is. I think for me and Matt, I don't know, maybe Garbage Pail Kids. Garbage Pail Kids, I think was maybe our first taste of the renegade approach to pop culture, but that's still a pop culture product itself.
Right.
So, yeah.
And I would definitely say, obviously, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Willy Wonka, was that a big influence at the very beginning? Had you written a letter to Gene Wilder at some point?
Yeah, I mean, we're both definitely big fans of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate. I mean, the influences for this film are so vast, but it's really a collage of things. But yeah, as far as the Gene Wilder element, yeah, we had this little, I guess, dream at the beginning of making this, or this thought of Gene Wilder actually kind of making an appearance in our film in the role of the Candyman character that you see at the end. And Jeff, with his diplomatic skills, did some quality research and was able to find Gene Wilder's address.
I think that this is less that we wanted Gene Wilder in the movie and more that when you're out to make an independent film, anything that you can do to make the project happen, you're going to want to do. So we certainly knew that if Gene Wilder reprised his role as Willy Wonka, that would be an international event. And as it happened, we had put together some materials and we did send it to him. And it was moving one day when a letter did appear in the mailbox from Gene Wilder, in which he talked about having been Willy Wonka and said that Willy Wonka, I think his words were, "Willy Wonka is in a faraway place right now. I can't find him now."
Yeah, because he really.
But your film looks great.
He wasn't the real Willy Wonka in that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory movie. That was an entirely different Willy Wonka than the ones that we remember, you know.
Yeah.
So this film project actually started while Gene Wilder was still alive. This was what, 4 years ago, 5 years ago when you started this?
The roots of this go way back, Derek, because you know, me and Matt often think about, like, to me at least, the moment we're at different places, but I was in Iraq in the war, and Matt was making a film about Marshmallow Peeps, a documentary, and he was in the editing stage, and at a certain point he sent me to Iraq a copy of the film that I could only watch on, like, what was the...
Yeah, this was in the ages of mini DV, you know, so I made this documentary film called The Power of the Peep, and I basically went down the rabbit hole of everything related to Marshmallow Peeps, and I sent Jeff this small mini DV tape that I think it was at, what was it, the local TV station, Jeff, that you could play it
So
at?
I then had to find a place in Baghdad to play a mini DV. And the only place I could find was some crazy military press room. And they put it on this little screen while the war is going on outside. And I was watching these marshmallows jumping around while I'm hearing the call to prayer and mortar fire. And I was just thinking, this combination, all of this, the marshmallow on this screen, this war, this world, like, this is the movie. This is another movie. This is the true story of this world. Yeah, I think that from both of our life experiences, and then Jeremy, you know, and you meet an actor like Jeremy, and he kind of brings his life experiences in, and the souffle rises.
Well, and so
used a candy thing, not a souffle rises. The
right.
tea stretches.
Yeah,
the mallow boils.
How the taffy pulls. So, you know, it was very crucial, obviously, for them to find an actor such as yourself, Jeremy, who could stay with the project for the entire time, right? This was how many years did it take to film this?
Was it like a year and a half? Yeah. Does that sound about right?
Time.
And the bulk of it seemed to be in like one summer.
Yeah.
But then you guys kept like calling me like every 6 weeks. Hey, we're gonna do this. We're gonna remember that thing we didn't do. I was like, oh, we didn't finish the movie yet. Or it was like, oh, we need to get a thing because we realized in editing that this one moment doesn't work. So we're gonna drive another 300 miles back to where we were. You know, remember that place we were back in June? We're gonna drive there when the weather's nice again, and we're gonna film basically the same scene again. Blah blah blah. But I loved it. I mean, basically because Jeff and Matt are just great people. So I was always happy to say, yes, I am there. I am there for you.
We're the Three Musketeers.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a candy reference.
Or you're the s'mores. I love that scene when
we were the s'more.
A marshmallow, a graham cracker, and chocolate, and you become a traveling s'more.
Yeah.
You know?
And the Three Musketeers was originally
candy bar.
Pieces, yeah, and the candy bar contained vanilla, chocolate, and strawberry.
Oh, right.
This is the original Three Musketeers.
But
yep. We can
get into that movie. It is it's jam-packed with so many cool details. Every time you watch it, you pick up something new. And I love it about that. I mean, it moves at such a fast and furious pace. It's really fun, playful editing. Also, I think the cinematography is gorgeous. I really do. And Matthew, I think you shot the film, right?
Yeah, I shot the film and edited the film.
And you've had a lot of training in cinema. Didn't you do second unit photography for a Steven Spielberg film, or?
Yeah, well, that was a Discovery Channel series that I worked on called The Rising, where we documented the construction at Ground Zero. But yeah, I've worked as a director of photography for like 15 years, and I've basically always been a filmmaker at heart, you know.
I mean, there were just so many very striking scenes that I could tell were artfully done. Like, who could take a McDonald's playland and turn it into such a beautiful wonderland, you know, and the colors inside the slides. And I want you to know, I appreciated everything. I appreciated the production design, the costumes. It was just so imaginative and creative. And I also really liked the acting. And I know that, you know, for some, they might think, okay, this is a little campy. And I would explain to people or different people on the screening committee, which they all loved it, by the way. But there have been other movies submitted that there are films that are intentionally campy, and I can tell the difference between intentionally campy and something that just is badly done and amateurish. So it's interesting. Your film is so like, even at the beginning, the landlord that's knocking on the door, the rent. After I saw your film, for some reason I was watching a Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, and there is a landlord that has that accent and he's doing the rent, and I'm thinking, was this a reference to that? Or, you know, like, where you had such a huge cast of interesting little bit parts and characters and appearances. How did you, as directors, how did you direct these actors? Did you say just do whatever you want, or did they improvise? Talk a little bit about directing and acting.
Sure.
Whoever wants to take that question?
Well, for starters, I mean, we had an extensive like writing phase, me and Jeff, on this. I mean, we went for so long before we even entered the production phase. So we were pretty clear about, you know, the dialogue, and I was, you know, we worked together, and I was pretty clear about designing every shot and the layout of the whole film. But yeah, as far as the acting goes, and what you're talking about, the campy element, yeah, I mean, the way I see it, and Jeff, you can add to this, but it's like, we just love classic, like iconic, like this whole film is kind of a giant metaphor that you could look at it. I mean, we always made the joke that this film could be about candy, but we could have done the same film about like chairs, and you just like go into chairs, everything about chairs, and within a chair you could find the whole cosmos, you know? So that was kind of the fun exploration of this movie, was just like candy as the lens through which we can explore everything, you know?
You definitely lived the film. I mean, you know, we wrote the movie, you're saying like McDonald's, like some of the movies written at McDonald's. In fact, you know, this is being
Supersize Me, Morgan Spurlock, was that?
Yeah, and there's people that'll see this after the movie. I mean, the last lines of the film were literally, you know, spoken between us on top of a different large marshmallow vat in, where was it, Matt? Staten Island?
Yeah, Staten Island, yep.
So we were scouting out places that evoked things for us, and even as we hiked them and imagined filming them, we were living them. But I don't know, you know, the word campy, I don't know that,
Isn't that a brand of marshmallow? Camp marshmallows or something? Maybe I'm just thinking of campfire s'mores.
Are.
Yeah.
Yeah, in terms of what performances are, and speaking to a radical truth, an ecstatic truth, a funny truth. I mean, that's why Jeremy, you know, I'll never forget the moment that we met Jeremy and heard him read some lines. He kind of is a spiritual being in ways that me and Matt are guys that like make a film, like we're carrying C-stands and stuff. Jeremy.
So wait, okay, so I hate to say it, but our Zoom window froze up a little bit back there, so I missed the part where, how did you discover Jeremy? How did he come to the project? How did he audition for this?
Jeremy, do you remember it well, Jeremy? I mean, we gave him a scene that's actually not in the movie.
Yeah, well, okay, so here's like I want to say too, I'll tell this story, and then I want to speak to like the heightened like acting bit, like that sort of thing. So like what was funny is there was like, what was 2015? I woke up one day and there's this, for people who don't know, there's this thing called breakdown services where, you know, agents submit through, you know, to casting directors, and, you know, and there's an element of that that's called Actors Access. And a lot of the things on Actors Access it's very hit and miss in terms of what you can find as an actor that's worthwhile or even pays well. And so, you know, one day I said to my wife, I was like, I don't know, maybe I should just like start submitting on Actors Access again. Because, you know, an actor's life is up and down. And so, and I guess I was in a down moment. And so I was like, okay, fine. And so I remember I had like, there were like 3 or 4 things that I had clicked on and were in my Actors Access checkout cart. And one of them was this thing called the Hard Candy Kid. And I was like, I don't know, is this worth like renewing my membership? Whatever. So I clicked
the original shooting script.
Right. So I clicked submit, and then like 3 days later I get like an email from these guys, and okay, great. So I go in, and like right away I was like, oh, these guys are cool. And I get, you know, long story short, it ended up that we, you know, working together. And I definitely in the beginning had my doubts because it was like this 180-page script. I was like, what? These guys are making a 3-hour movie? What the hell is going on? But we talked about this, and like Jeff and Matt were like so open about like, look, we know that it looks insane, but we're not insane. This is what we're trying to do. Maybe is insane because making anything when you put your heart into it is a bit crazy. And I was like, that I can get behind. So
Jeremy's first day was us literally putting him on a chariot with with the roller coaster car attached to the top of it, while my brother had it strapped on.
Who was ex-Marine, by the way.
Our third brother, Dan. And then I'm throwing things at Jeremy. Matt's filming him with a rig attached to this chariot. That was the first day.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
You know,
and then you attach me to the back of a pickup truck later that night and drive through the woods at like a good like 23 miles an hour. And I'm like trusting you guys. I'm like,
yes.
But so there's that. But then speaking to like the heightened, what you mentioned is campy, is from an acting perspective, I would say it's like heightened. If anything, it's like closer to like theatrical than it would be to like film acting. Because anytime I would get like laid back or like start doing like a more like mumblecore film thing, Jeff and Matt would be like, it doesn't quite feel right. And so I'd have to like re-energize the engine, and it's something a little more akin to like the stage, where it's a little more out there, a little more bold, a little more voice, a little more animation is involved. And I remember this from the audition, like what you said, Matt or Jeff, about the bit that wasn't even in the movie was my audition piece. I remember like when I prepared that audition, it just intuitively felt like I had to like come in with like something that was a little more electric than maybe if it was I don't know, like an episodic television audition where you could kind of like mumble your way through it a little bit and just sort of hit the beats.
Yes, I'm so glad it's not mumblecore. Patty and I always joke about how I'm not a huge fan of mumblecore. I'll take a few, when they're really good, but it's just, that's what excites me about your film. In American independent cinema, I rarely see this type of film. And I agree, the acting is more theatrical, which matches sort of the production design is theatrical. I mean, I'm sure, Jeff and Matthew, were you the type of kids that designed haunted house spook alleys in your basement or something? I mean, I love that stuff.
And that's that guy.
I did do.
We're not mumblecore. I mean, it's nothing. I like some mumblecore stuff, but we have some things that we want to. When you have things you want to scream, you can't mumble, and that's, I think, what the movie speaks to. And I always think about, with Willy Wonka, another thing, like a difference between me and Matt and Jeremy is that some people see these movies or live these things in candy and life, and like say Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Some people see it and they want to make a movie as good as Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Okay. That would be Matt. Some people want to be an actor as powerful as the actors in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Willy Wonka, and then some people like actually think it's a real thing and they just want to live that, and they're checking for golden tickets in their candy. That's me. And that combination is like all of us in this film.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is it was very striking to me when looking at a lot of other film submissions, not the films in our festival we've selected, we love all our films, but there are some films we didn't program that I kind of felt were purposely trying to force a film to follow a formula because they intentionally want to break into the industry, or they intentionally want to please an audience here. And what I felt about your film was you almost didn't care. You threw caution to the wind. You followed your heart and your creative muse. And I almost, because like Jeff and Matt, you both have other full-time careers. I don't even know if you plan to become full-time filmmakers, but it was almost like, would I call you hobby filmmakers? And that's something I want to celebrate when someone does an exceptionally amazing creative job with sort of a hobby film. Would you call yourselves hobby filmmakers, or do you have another project in the pipeline ready to go after to follow this?
We're artists, and we don't like calling it an industry, you know. And it's like that. I think it's as simple as that, you know. I mean, you could certainly want to be in the industry, and you know, will anybody watching this will certainly consider. But we're not, you know. In the end, an artist wants to put out their vision.
And that's what we want to celebrate at film festivals. We do want to celebrate the artists. You know, there's so much of this is about box office and, you know, big audience draw and popcorn, and which I love, but and I do love my fun and campy and you know, magical
yeah.
films.
Well, Matt is a pro filmmaker. I mean, Matt's been in the industry. Matt's shot lots of things, and so he could speak to that. And I think for him, and you know, this is, I don't know, Matt, where did you see this? Why did you want to do it?
Yeah, I mean, this is just yes, it's just always been my passion. I've always been, I mean, you know, I started off as a photographer, a still photographer, and then got into motion picture film. So this has just been in my blood for so long, telling stories through film. And yeah, it's just a natural extension of who I am, really.
And Jeremy, what
you didn't want to, yeah, go ahead.
I want to hear from Jeremy. I mean, you're making a professional career out of acting, and I'm sure you've done other kind of roles that are not similar to this. Have you done mumblecore?
Well, I feel like I made a mumblecore shortly after. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't mumblecore. It was a movie that I wrote that a friend of mine directed. I don't know if it was mumblecore. It was its own beast. It was like an offbeat sort of comedy about my growing up Jewish in Utah. But let's see, I mean, I've done a lot of theater, I've done a lot of television, but in terms of like this movie, working with Jeff and Matt, there's like certain things that you do in the life of any artistic path, where moments, jobs, things, projects become like life touchstones, things that the experience was so specific that it fundamentally shifts you as a person and as a creative force. And this project was definitely that. And I attribute that to the fact of just the places we went imaginatively and physically. Like, we went places, we did things. The days were hot, like literally in the middle of summer. It was uncomfortable. We didn't literally, there was no pot to piss in sometimes. I had to go take a crap in a bush out in New Jersey. What is it called? Like, not the wet Everglades. It's
airfield. Oh yeah, that too.
Just don't go work for Amazon. You'll be peeing in bottles.
Right, exactly. There's
deliveries.
Right. The Pine Barrens. I wandered off into the Pine Barrens to drop a deuce because there was no bathroom.
Okay.
Like, so like, not to get crass, but like there was like
already did.
The movie was made out of the love of like doing, the love of crafting, the love of getting a camera, going to a place and like memorizing lines, you know, getting an intention in your body, digging into the soul of a character, you know, from my perspective. And like sweating it out. It was like digging a ditch. And so
you know, it was funny, Jeremy, because I've spent many years in Utah, and I didn't know you were from Utah, but I remember when I first reached out to Matt and Jeff, I said, is this guy from Utah? There's something in his performance that there's this kind of sarcasm, but it's kind of a nice, sweet sarcasm, like a saintly sarcasm, and sort of more G-rated humor than what you just displayed on this Q&A.
Right.
But it reminds me very much of Trent Harris, who's sort of a cultish filmmaker in Utah that does a lot of satirical films. And you know, there's so many filmmakers that you're movie brings to mind. Christopher Guest, I love the mockumentary aspect. Morgan Spurlock, I love the fact that you blended documentary, you know, about food in there. And I love the format of your film. Like I've always said, I'm more comfortable with fiction films bringing elements of documentary into it than the opposite. I'm very disturbed by this trend of documentaries that have fictional elements and the filmmaker doesn't bother to tell the audience that there's fictional, because we already have enough problems with fake, you know, people thinking everything is fake news and what can you trust. So I think this is why I love fiction narrative films to be just as wildly imaginative as you can make them. And there is a time when the more realistic, hyper realistic comes into play and is helpful to tell the story, when you need that realism for the intended emotional effect. But anyways, we're almost out of time, so I just want to ask quickly, what do you guys, this is your world premiere. We're so excited and proud to be able to host the world premiere. What do you see next for this film and your careers? Real quick, because we have about a minute left. So talk fast.
We just hope this movie will reach a lot of people. We want everybody who's a kid or a kid at heart to see it, and for it to be a way for them to, you know, go to the heart of sweetness and I don't know, reach some of the revelations that the character does, that Jeremy does, that we did when we lived it. Because the movie really happened. It happened to us. It's a spiritual autobiography that is still unfolding.
Nice.
Yeah, I concur with that for sure. Yeah, sky's the limit.
It's all true. It's all true. Jeremy really jumped into the Hudson River. We really did climb up a real vat. We went to those places. They're our lives. And, you know, you asked about making a movie, like what your future is. When we made this, we didn't want to leave anything on the table, anything on the floor, any energy unexpended, any dreams or ideas left unsaid. So that's all of it. It was all barfed out.
And that's something you can enjoy doing with true independent cinema. You don't necessarily have to follow the rules or guidelines that, you know, the studio might impose on you. Jeremy, any last words?
Yeah, well, I really think, like, something I learned just like making this film with Jeff and Matt is that they really had, and they still have, I think, something to say. Like, I think the film is coming from a place of trying to uncover some darker elements of our human experience in service of you know, making the world a little sweeter, a little lighter. And so I hope that people who see this film, like, really take, I hope that the heart of what they're trying to do comes through, because I really do think there is something beautiful about the movie you guys made, and as crazy and wacky and difficult as it might be,
Well,
I think the intention is really coming from a beautiful place.
great. Well, that sounds like a wonderful place to leave it. And sending you virtual Cadbury candy eggs for Easter and a
Beautiful.
chocolate bunny. And
3 years on Easter.
all right, that's a wrap. See you all later. Thank you. Bye.
Bye now.